My girlfriend ghosted me right after meeting my parents. She thought she got away with it until my mom called and said, "There's something you should know about that night." I'd been with Emma for just under a year when I finally asked her to meet my parents. We weren't rushing things, but it felt like the natural next step. We were spending more weekends together. She'd met a couple of my cousins in passing, and we'd even talked about traveling later in the year. So, when I suggested dinner with my parents, she said sure without hesitation. We set it for a Sunday evening at my parents' house, casual, low pressure. My mom made her signature baked ziti, and my dad brought out a bottle of red wine he'd been saving for a special occasion, which apparently this was. I was a little nervous but mostly excited. Dinner went as well as I could have hoped. My dad made his usual awkward jokes that tend to embarrass everyone in the room, and my mom played the warm host, asking Emma about her job, hobbies, and family. Emma responded politely. She smiled, laughed when appropriate, and made good eye contact, but something felt off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. She wasn't rude, not at all, but her smile seemed too practiced. The way she tilted her head like she was listening but wasn't, felt out of character. At one point, she excused herself to take a call in the hallway. I didn't think much of it at the time. Her job could be demanding. But when she returned, she seemed quieter. Not upset, just withdrawn. I figured maybe it was a work thing. After dinner, we said goodbye and I drove her back to her apartment. I asked if she was okay, and she said, "Yeah, your parents are nice." Then added, "I'm just tired." I didn't push. We kissed goodnight and I headed home. The next few days felt strange. Her texts became short and delayed. Normally, she'd respond quickly, even if she was busy, but now hours went by with nothing. Conversations that used to stretch across paragraphs were reduced to cold one-liners. Whenever I asked to make plans, she'd be busy or not feeling well. It wasn't just one excuse, it was a string of them. By Thursday, I felt like I was the only one trying. On Friday, I heard nothing. Saturday came and went in silence. By Sunday, it felt like I disappeared from her world. I kept replaying everything in my head. Was it something my parents said? Did my mom ask something too personal? Did my dad's jokes make her uncomfortable? Or was it me? Did I pressure her into something she wasn't ready for? I almost sent her a long message to ask what was going on. But I stopped myself. Maybe she needed space. Maybe something had happened. Or maybe something else was going on. That's when my mom called. When I answered, her voice wasn't her usual warm tone. Instead, there was a pause. "Hey," she said carefully. "I've been thinking about something, and I'm not sure if I should bring it up." Already on edge, I sat up. "What's going on?" She hesitated. "I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but after what you told me about Emma going quiet, there's something I didn't mention about that night. You remember when she took that call in the hallway?" "Yeah." "Well," she sighed, "I went out to the porch to bring in the cushions before it rained. I passed by her on the phone. She didn't see me. She was facing the coat closet. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I heard her say something that really bothered me. My stomach tightened. What did she say?" My mom lowered her voice. She said something like, "Yeah, I'll be done with this by the weekend. I just needed to make it look real for now." I froze. "She didn't say your name," my mom added quickly. "And maybe it was about work or some personal situation that had nothing to do with you. That's why I didn't mention it earlier. But now that you've told me she hasn't called or texted, it feels connected." That line, "I just needed to make it look real," lodged in my brain like a splinter. I thanked my mom and said I'd call her later. Then I just sat there, staring at my phone. Emma had always seemed straightforward. She wasn't overly affectionate or clingy, but she was consistent. I never thought she was pretending. If anything, she was the one who reminded me to be honest about your feelings. So what was this? I texted her again. A simple, "Hey, can we talk?" No response. I called. Straight to voicemail. 2 more days passed in silence. By Tuesday night, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to her apartment. When I knocked, no one answered. Just as I turned to leave, the door opened. She looked surprised and not happy. "Oh," she said flatly. "Hey," I replied. "You've been hard to reach." She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "Yeah, I've had a lot going on." I stared at her. "Did I do something wrong?" She shook her head. "No, I just needed space. I wasn't ready for all that. Dinner, meeting your parents, it felt like too much." "You could have told me," I said quietly. "Yeah, I should have." I searched her face. "So, were you ever really in this? Or was I just part of something else you had going on?" She crossed her arms. "I wasn't faking everything, if that's what you're asking. But I kept telling myself I was more into it than I actually was." That line, "more into it than I actually was," cut deeper than anger could. "My mom overheard you on the phone that night," I said finally. "You said, 'I'll be done with this by the weekend.' I just needed to make it look real." She didn't flinch. No denial. No shock. Just a quiet exhale, like she'd been expecting this. "Yeah," she said. "It was complicated. I didn't know how to explain it to you." "Explain it now." She leaned against the railing. "I was kind of seeing someone before we got serious. We weren't exclusive, but things were messy. Then I met you. I thought you'd helped me move on. And for a while you did. But that other person never really went away. I know it sounds awful. It is. I thought meeting your parents would make me feel something deeper, like I could finally close that door. But I didn't." It sounded rehearsed, like this wasn't the first time she'd had to untangle herself from someone else's life. "You could have just been honest," I said. "You didn't have to ghost me like I was some experiment." "You're right," she admitted. "I handled it badly. I didn't know how to leave without hurting you, so I avoided it. And that's better?"
No.
"But it's what I did." There wasn't much left to say. We stood there for a long moment, both knowing this was the end. "Take care of yourself," I said and turned to leave. As I walked back to my car, I wasn't angry. Not the way I thought I'd be. I wasn't even heartbroken. I felt relieved. Relieved I hadn't gotten more tangled in her mess. Relieved my mom had trusted her instincts when I couldn't. Later that night I called my mom back. "You were right," I said. "She wasn't in it for the long haul. You saw what I didn't." "Sometimes," my mom replied softly, "we want to believe in people more than they deserve. I'm proud of you for facing it." Since then, I haven't dwelled on Emma. I don't check her social media. I don't wonder what she's doing. But sometimes, I catch myself thinking, how many people is she making it look real with now? I learned a lot from that relationship, mainly about paying attention to actions, not just words, and about listening to the people who know you well enough to see what you can't. What would you have done in my place? Would you have confronted her sooner or walked away the moment she pulled back?